club is expanding across Canada and around the world. And I'll show that to you. I think it's very strange, very concerning when you have violence erupting in Canada among one specific group in multiple hotspots across Canada. That's very interesting, especially when the conflict is not something that Canadians are typically conflicted about. So this is happening in Canada. This is Calgary, but I've got Toronto to show you. We've got some, this is going back about a month, but we've got to talk about that and other violence as well. But most of this is Eritrean civil war violence stuff happening in Canada. And that's bad. That's not good whatsoever because, one, I don't want violence happening in this country because the chances of you getting caught in a crossfire are increased exponentially, right? Versus no violence, no crossfire to be caught in, right? And two, this changes the landscape of the country from a high trust, high safety place to low trust, low safety. Soon we're going to have gated communities and things like that. And I mean, Canada didn't need that for a long time because the population was pretty low and very high trust. And that's changing rapidly. So here's what's going on in Calgary. Ferryman's Toll says Calgary becomes the third Canadian city to play host to Eritrean migrant violence. In the last month, this has also occurred in Norway, Sweden, Germany, and Israel. I've got information on all of those for you. Funny how Israel is the only one who plans to deport them immediately, and all other African migrants, by the way. So here we go.
Oh my God!
Amar?
Can we please call 911?
A lot of people कर चुके call.
So you can see, it's kind of hard to see unless you're looking in the background, but you can see hundreds, maybe 100, strewn all in a line, kind of facing the building that the point of view of the video is through a window. And on the other side of the window are people who are opposing this line of people. So this guy's got a blue, it's like a baby blue do-rag or something to that effect on, but this baby blue is signifying a side that he's on, okay? And these guys are throwing things, and there's a lot of property damage that's happening because these cars are kind of collateral damage, they're being hit. This vantage point isn't great, but there's other videos that I'll show you as well. All from the same situation. Here is a minute-long video, and I think it goes through. There's more people on the video here. I'll try and describe it, but it's kind of noisy. I mean, medium noisy, I guess. Here we go. Oh, it's not noisy at all. Ha! I turned the volume down and everything. Okay, so now a lot of the people in the white shirts, in that short clip at the beginning, a lot of the people in the white shirts had crossed the parking lot, and we were at the point of view of in the parking lot. That was the video we had just seen. Here's a video after that. So in this video, the police have shown up and they're separating the two groups, but the one group is lined up like at the police border. The police are standing here trying to direct people away and direct the two groups away. And the news article, sorry, I don't mean to be talking over it, but I'm trying to kind of narrate for people who are just listening. The news article, which I'll read to you in a minute, is talking about how there were a lot of people armed, and you can see people who are armed. They're throwing rocks, they're throwing light, other debris. So I don't think they're throwing wood, but they are throwing other items, not just rocks, bottles, things like that. And they've got 2x4s and other wood as clubs. This is wild. It's wild stuff. But this is the modus operandi of these types of clashes, which we've seen all across Canada over the last little while. Here is 4 different videos. This is one we haven't seen yet. Sorry, there we go.
My old window's breaking.
This is, again, from the same point of view. This is a longer video, 3 minutes and 30 seconds, going through. Here's heavy police presence. Even on this side, you can see this person here is holding a rock. This person here has got a stick. I don't know what you're going to do with this stick. I mean, I guess it would hurt to get, because it's not as thick as a 2x4, but I guess if you got hit with that, it would whip and probably hurt really hard. Like it would hit hard and hurt a lot because it's thin enough to move at a high velocity. Ezra Levent is commenting on the National Post's article. And actually, I'm going to read you the National Post article because I came away from it thinking it's actually pretty robust, and it doesn't hide as much as I thought it was going to. But Edra says, very skillful reporting. They had to muster every lesson they learned in journalism school to be able to hide any identifying details about the 150 rioters until the 8th paragraph. Right? You could criticize it, but here's the article, so make up your own mind. National Post is reporting violent conflict with 150 people erupts in Calgary Saturday afternoon. Police were called to the scene around 5 p.m. Saturday and told two groups of people were engaged in violent activity. Up to 150 people participated in a violent fight late Saturday afternoon in the northeast community of Falcon Ridge. The Calgary Police Service considers this to be a serious event and has dedicated resources to keep the peace, police said in a Saturday night media release. This is not a protest. This is a violent conflict between two groups with opposing views. Police said Sunday that charges are pending as a result of the incident, which sent 10 people to the hospital, none with serious injuries. 10 people to the hospital, none with serious injuries? Go to the hospital just to make sure. Police were called to the scene around 5 p.m. Saturday and told two groups of people were engaged in violent activity. When they arrived, they separated the groups and worked to de-escalate the situation, noting, quote, many of those involved were brandishing weapons. A video of the scene posted online showed men with bats and sticks. An investigation is ongoing in which police are looking at property damage, the violence involved, and all relevant associated criminal activity. Police asked people to stay away from Falcon Ridge as they investigated Saturday night. Our primary goal is to ensure public safety, they said in the release. We are working with the involved groups to maintain the peace. We're working with the involved groups to maintain the peace. Do you mean like arresting them? Or they also indicated Calgarians should be reassured that all appropriate resources were being deployed. The confrontation may be related to similar Aritian conflicts that have been occurring in cities around the world, including a recent riot in Edmonton in mid-August. We're going to look at that next. The Edmonton Journal, Edmonton Sun reported that incident was a chaotic scene with few, if any, parallels in Edmonton's history. Hundreds of men clashing on a field, some in blue, others in orange, carrying sticks and poles, flying brightly colored flags. The conflict pitted members of the city's Aritian community against one another, led officers to take the rare step of proclaiming the Riot Act. The police responded, during which stones, bricks, and other objects were hurled at officers in riot gear. The chaos began at a field in West Edmonton where organizers had planned events for the annual Aritian Festival. The long-running festival celebrates the history and culture of the East African nation, but both organizers and police say they were aware of the potential for violence. Other Aritian festivals in Europe, the United States, and Toronto this year were marked by clashes involving blue-shirted protesters opposing the Aritian government. One of the things that I wanted to point out here is it says the long-running festival. So I wanted to find out what long-running festival was Aritian in Calgary's history, and it's the Heritage Festival, and that was running since 1976. I don't know when the Aritian booth was added, but that's what they mean by the long-standing festival. I don't know if it's the Heritage Festival that was marred by this whole thing, but I think that's what it may be, a separate a separate head of the Heritage Festival or something like that, like its own festival, but it is encompassed by the Heritage Festival. But I couldn't find the Aritian Festival, so apologies. But if somebody else finds an Aritian Festival, I always want to find out what they mean by long running. You know what I mean? Like, did it start in 2020, 2019? What do you mean long running? 4 years and strong, like, what do you mean? So 1976 was the best I could do when I Googled Aritian Calgary Festival. 1976 Heritage Festival. That's when it came up. So anyway, regardless, these blue-shirted and orange-shirted people are clashing around the Aritian government. Moving on. Rival Aritian groups engage in clashes worldwide. So not only does it give color on what happened and directly say these are Aritian gangs, it talks about the other Aritian clashes that are happening in Canada and around the world. So I don't know. I had to give credit to the article. Here's just the last part of the article. There's not much left. Similar protests involving rival Aritian groups have also been popping up in other countries. Bloody protests Saturday by rival groups of Aritians in South Tel Aviv left dozens of people injured. Aritian supporters and opponents of Aritian governments faced off with construction lumber, pieces of metal, and rocks. So there you go, modus operandi. Smashing shop windows and police cars. Israeli police in riot gear shot tear gas, stun grenades, and live rounds while officers on horseback tried to control the protesters. Elsewhere on Saturday, Norway's second largest city, Bergen, witnessed clashes clashes between supporters and opponents of the Eritrean government during a rally commemorating the city's Independence Day. Norwegian authorities said government opponents threw bottles and stones at rally participants. Large numbers of police forces with shields and visors fanned out on the streets, and parts of Bergen's city center were cordoned off because of the violence. Over 100 people were involved in the clashes, and at least 3 people were detained, while 1 person was injured, Norwegian authorities said. In early August, Swedish media reported that about 1,000 protesters stormed an Eritrean festival in Stockholm, the capital, setting booths and cars on fire and using rocks and sticks as weapons, leaving at least 52 people injured and more than 100 people detained. Eritrea's president Isas Afwerki, 77, I'm getting his name terribly wrong, has been in power since 1993 after the country won independence from Ethiopia following a long guerrilla war. There have been no elections and no free media, and exit visas are required for Eritreans to leave the country. Many young people are forced into military service with no end date, human rights groups and United Nations experts say. So there's a lot wrong with Eritrea, but importing Eritrea to Canada does not seem to be fixing Eritrea or helping Canada. So that's something to note. This is going back in time to August 20th, not too long ago, less than a month, right? Couple of weeks. Violence won't deter community, Edmonton Eritrean Festival organizer says. So there was a similar clash at this festival. The organizer of an Edmonton Eritrean festival says the community will not be deterred after violent confrontations around the city drew riot police Saturday. The event celebrating the East African country Eritrea saw its permits withdrawn by the police along with the city of Edmonton because of rising tensions, and soon after clashes broke out at a soccer field in a northwest neighborhood. Just before 2 p.m., more than 80 police officers were separating one crowd demonstrating against the Eritrean government from another. Some men were armed with wooden sticks, and police said 11 people were injured and taken to hospital. Hours later, police had formed a barrier between protesters near 34th Avenue and 93rd Street, or 93rd Street, I don't know how you say that. Nearby at the Maharaja Banquet Hall, windows were smashed out. Several cars outside the establishment also had windows broken. So there you go. And there's a little bit more, but we'll move on because there's more violence to talk about. Going back to August 3rd and the Toronto Eritrean Festival, before the Eritrean Festival kicked off, they contacted police to say, we're pretty sure we're going to get attacked. And the police said, nah. And then the police said, once the attack actually happened, they said, we can't figure out if there's if there's something to do with it being the Eritrean Festival. We think it was just random violence. I'll show that to you in a minute. But it's not funny. But they try and use media to soften what's actually happening, to lie to you. Okay? Here's SICO, and they say, this weekend, the Eritrean Canadian community will celebrate the decades-old annual Eritrean Festival. They keep saying this. I don't remember the decades-old annual Eritrean Festival in Toronto. Okay, I really don't. I don't remember August 3rd or 5th or anything like that having anything to do with Eritrean history or culture or anything like that. And I've grown up in Ontario my whole life, and I used to go to Toronto every Sunday. So if there was an Eritrean festival, we drove through it. Didn't happen. This family-oriented event has been threatened by a violent group known as Brigade and Hamdu, Death Brigade. We ask that the 13th and 52nd Divisions of Toronto Police help keep our event festive and peaceful as it has been for the last 30 years. 30 years. When? When did this start? 30 years ago. 1990? 1993? Creepers. I would have probably gone to Toronto, and the Eritrean Festival was probably very small, right? Who knows? 30 years ago. I'd love to see the history of this and how it changes from something that is celebrating a culture to a violent clash, right? Toronto Police reports this is on August 5th, the weekend of the Eritrean gathering. And they say police reports person with a knife, Caledonia Road and St. Clair Ave West. Event has turned violent again. So the police went and defused it, and then this is the second time that it turned violent. Officers from across the city are assisting in gaining control. Please stay out of the area. Significant traffic delays in the area. And further, the crowd is dispersing onto the roadways. Please stay out of the area. Extreme delays in the area. And this was August 5th at 4:45 p.m. And again, they say Caledonia and St. Clair Ave intersection is now closed. Heavy traffic reported in the area. Use alternate routes. So they're shutting down this violent confrontation. And I looked up the park and I looked up the stabbings that were happening and I looked up any kind of news. And when I clicked on this one, the article doesn't exist. Seaway News, and it says like it's the number one Brave result, which may be the number one Google result, but it's cornwallseawaynews.com. And this was a month ago, and you can see a part of it, right? Police issued a series of tweets talking about stabbings and so on and so forth. But when you actually go into the thing here, no article exists. Now there's a global news article that exists, and I found that. But some tweets are talking about what actually happened. 9 people were injured, possibly more, after being stabbed at Earl Court Park in Toronto, Canada. So that was some of the news that got out. Here's a global news article talking about it as well. Festival in West End Toronto Park turns violent. 9 taken to hospital, right? Lambros K, chair of the Canadian Aritian organization called SECO, said the attack happened during the annual Aritian Festival at Earls Court Park. He said festival helpers were attacked as they were setting up the event in the morning. This is a long weekend celebration and they were trying to get it canceled, he told Global News. I don't think the threat will persist. He was wrong. He said that his organization had reached out to Toronto police earlier in the week, fearing an attack. He said phone calls were made to 2 local police divisions voicing concerns the festival could be attacked. Festival organizer informed the police earlier this week, he said. In August 3rd post on Twitter, the group warned of a threat to the festival and asked Toronto police for help. A spokesperson for the Toronto police said they cannot confirm the information when asked by Global News. Police also said they were unable to confirm a link between the attack, injuries, and the Aritian Festival. Sure, the stabbing happened at the Aritian Festival, but we don't know if the attack happened because of the Aritian Festival, say the police. Even though the people organizing the Aritian Festival called them and said, we think we might be attacked because there's all of these reasons why we think we might be attacked, and also all of this other violence that's happening too. But we can't confirm, said the police. We don't know. We're not sure. It's up in the air. We're investigating. Sure they are. Councillor Alejandra Bravo, that's a good name, said she was shocked and saddened to hear about the violence during a political protest of a festival in the park. She asked the public to give police space to work while officers investigate. So it is one of those things where they don't want to get to the bottom of it. They don't want to tell you what's actually happening. And while that's funny for my purposes, right? Because you can point out all of the things that indicate that it might have something to do with it being Aritian, right? Because the people who attacked it were Aritian, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's not good though, because the police are they're choosing to turn a blind eye to this. They're choosing to not deal with this. And what does that mean for the rule of law in Canada? And it's not great to go from a high trust country to a low trust country. That's not good. That's very bad. On-screen photography says shooting. Ottawa police are on the scene of a shooting in the area of Upsland Drive and Hunt Club Drive. Unknown condition of victims. Please avoid the area. Move more into information to follow. Rupa says a Freedom Convoy protester shouts or mocks at someone across the street for wearing a mask. That's white supremacy in action, blah, blah, blah. Mass shooting in Ottawa that left 2 people dead and several injured. Shrug of the shoulders. Right? Nobody really cares. It's pretty wild. All of these different violent things that are happening in our country we're supposed to ignore, but we're supposed to be outraged about the proposed white supremacy that is dominating our society. Get real. People are not going, they're not doing this. We're not going for that. Here is Chris, and he says, just a reminder, there was a sword attack in Prince Edward Island 2 days ago, and the guy is still on the loose, and no one is talking about it or has any description of what he looks like. Could be the guy sitting next to you on the bus. So this is just a quick reminder that a couple of days ago there was a sword attack. RCMP are searching for the suspect after 2 injured in PEI sword attack. At what point will people start arming themselves against potential sword attacks and or attacks with sticks, etc., etc.? This is posted August 23rd. I thought when I first saw this, because I was looking up TPS operations and Aritian, and this guy popped up, and I thought maybe this was part of I thought there was footage of the Aritian conflict in the park. I remember seeing it, and I thought this was it. But now I'm not so sure because the shirt's not in English, and I think maybe it has something to do with the Tel Aviv protests. But this was well before the Tel Aviv protests, August 23rd. So it was a couple of weeks ago, but that's not to say that they wouldn't have pictures up on social media of him walking around. And this person's saying this guy is somebody of note for Toronto police. I don't know why, but they're trying to make the case. Anyway, I was interested in it just because I thought it was footage of the Toronto attack. It still might be. It still might be. I don't know. You tell me what you think. Do you think this is the Toronto attack? They said the tents were set on fire. Look, he's got a 2x4, right? Bam, bam. I mean, that would hurt, man. And it would be easy to wield. Easy. Is that a Canada flag? Hold on. See, he's unfurling something here, and it looks red on the bottom. Canada flag there? Hold on. I have to watch it again. Okay, so it looks like he's got a flagpole that's got a Canada flag, and he's taking the Canada flag off. It goes away, but look. And then he's hitting people with it. So that was carrying a Canadian flag. It resets. Canada flag, and he pulls it off the flagpole. And then he uses that to attack the guy. Crazy, man. Okay, so sorry, I caught that just while I was watching. I don't know. It looks like that was in Canada, so I don't know. Here is Andy No. He says Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has announced plans to immediately deport African migrants after hundreds were involved in brawling and rioting in Tel Aviv over the weekend. He says a red line has been crossed by the infiltrators. Sorry, that was a little loud. Here you go.
אוהד, בכחול זה נגד המשטר, באדום זה בעד המשטר.
So is that the Canada we want, right? Tel Aviv saying no. Here's Paul. He says African migrants are rioting in Norway. Feral chancers need deporting. These guys have swords, it sounds like. So you put yourself at risk. This guy is surrounded by other people who could reasonably attack him, and his backup's all the way over here, and he engages with this person, but he spun around twice. Like, these two could have easily overpowered him. So I don't know, but it sounded earlier in the clip like they've got swords, but maybe it was just clubs. I'm not sure. But this is Norway. And here's one last violent thing. I don't think this is Eritreans, but it's interesting. 2 dead, 6 injured in shooting at Ottawa wedding reception. Ottawa police are investigating a Saturday night shooting at a wedding reception that left 2 Toronto men dead and injured 6 others. Acting Amy Bond said police responded to reports of gunfire at 10:21 p.m. Saturday in the city's South End. The victims were attending a reception at the Infinity Convention Center on the 2900 block of Gibford Drive. For 4 hours after the reported shots, police stated there were no further threats to public safety. 2 victims were identified Sunday afternoon as 26-year-old Saeed Muhammad Ali and 29-year-old Abdikshar Abdi Dar, both from Toronto. Ottawa police had made no arrests as of Sunday afternoon and did not have a description of any suspects. The violence is tragic. It's unacceptable, Bond said. It's disturbing for our entire community. Well, yeah, but it doesn't seem like anybody has the political will to even articulate that it seems like people are coming to Canada, filling up our shelters, taking all of the available housing supply, and having full-blown conflicts on Canadian soil. And nobody's saying boo about that. Nobody's saying that's bad or wrong or they shouldn't do that. It seems crazy. We have a situation where our healthcare system is collapsing, where people are moving from British Columbia to Alberta to access services that are like basic services. You would think childcare and sports, etc., are basic services. I got an email this morning talking about how one family is moving from BC to Alberta and looking at all of the available stuff. You can't believe what's available. And he's saying that he was saying that he hopes people know that there are places in Canada that you can get cheap housing, but it takes a risk maybe, and it takes adjustment, right? It takes moving, it takes actually moving, and it takes doing all of that. And a lot of people don't have jobs that easily move with them, right? So, but yeah, there are places out there that are certainly better. But at the same time, well, I've got a news report talking about what's going on in Red Deer, I think it's Red Deer, Alberta, and hiring practices. That's at the end with COVID, talking about how COVID vaccines are necessary for being hired. So there's still, while the monetary situation may be tenable, if you can't get hired somewhere else, that might be a problem, right? So, but yeah, there are certainly solutions, but I think that our country belongs to us and not the politicians. And we should make it work for us rather than importing anybody who wants to come here at our detriment, right? If the economy doesn't work for us because of bad immigration policies, we shouldn't destroy the economy to make the immigration policies work. We should stop the bad immigration policies to make the economy work, I think, right? Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to canadapoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful